know how many people are going to be here, but we're really pleased that you are here tonight. I am Latrelle Joy. I'm City Council person for District 6, which basically is from Quaker over as far as you can go. And, okay, is that better? And approximately Clovis Highway over to 19th. With me tonight is Mark McBrayer. He is the City Council person for District 3. We decided to have these together because we kind of border each other. We're pretty close neighbors. So I welcome you. And Mr. McBrayer, you have anything you'd like to say?
No, just appreciate you all turning out. And we hope to be able to answer your questions. And someone said, you know, what if I ask a dumb question? There are no dumb questions tonight, all right? We want you to get your answers. We want you to feel comfortable and confident when you leave tonight. So any questions you have, we'll stay here as long as it takes to answer your questions, okay? Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to introduce to you Matt Rose, and I guess you'll kick it off and lead us through this presentation. Has everybody got the information that was passed out? Has everybody got it? Okay. Okay, Matt, why don't you lead them through?
Sure. Let's see if this. Okay, can y'all hear me? All right. Well, if at any point in time somebody in the back can't hear me, just yell at me, and I'll try to project even more than I'm already doing. But hopefully this will get to everybody, and we've still got some folks coming in here, which is good. You know, the main thing we want right now is to be out there raising awareness of this project and starting the process of educating y'all about what this is going to look like when we make this transition. As we go through this presentation tonight, I'm going to try to run through these slides with my control panel here, but we've also got Angelica over here with the city that's controlling this screen on this side. So if there's anything that y'all can't see on one of these screens, feel free to yell at me. I'll allow ample time on the back end of this for any and all questions. And as the council member stated, I'll be here until everybody is comfortable that they've had their questions answered. Also know that this is not the very last one of these that we're going to do. We're going to be doing a lot of them in the coming months. If you go to LP&L.com, you'll see right up front on our website that we have a list of public events such as these that'll be happening really the next 2 Mondays, and then we'll be scheduling them going out from there as well. I'm also going around the city talking to various different groups like Rotaries and Kiwanis and Lions Clubs, small religious groups and big religious groups, and every kind of imaginable community organization. We're going out there and speaking. So, you know, as I go through this, if you all in the future have a group that you'd like us to come speak to, or myself, you can always contact me. You can also contact the City Council office because they're helping me as folks call in to get information out and schedule these types of events. So right up front, I've got a slide deck that I'm going to walk through here that hopefully will tell you more about this project and what our expectations are in the coming months. But right up front, and I'll mention this a few times, and I'm sure I'll address it on the back end for folks that are still coming in, but I just wanted to address, you know, really the last couple of days, the last week, folks kind of seeing reports out there in the news about the status of this project overall. So I wanted to address that just kind of fully up front, which is that as we've worked through this project, and this project has been going on really since 2015, the competition portion of this, we've talked a lot about since 2018, but all of that is to say that this has been several years in the making as we've been going through various different regulatory approvals and really putting this project together. There's a ton of work that's happening behind the scenes and continues to happen. We have one more regulatory approval that we have to get before we can really kick off this campaign. And that approval is by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is basically, we've been going to the Texas PUC up to this point to get these approvals, but we have to get the feds to approve one final piece before we can migrate the remaining 30% of customers from the Southwest Power Pool to ERCOT. And then once that happens, this project will officially kick off. This past week, we were expecting to get that approval from the feds. Instead, they delayed that approval and said that they want to take a look at this a little bit further. And so as we go through this project, what I'll point out is that I've been talking to groups a lot saying that our timeline for this, should everything fall in place, would be that our customers would be out there choosing their providers this August, and that we would be going live transferring our customers to their new providers in October. As we've seen this delay in federal approval, we don't know exactly what that does to the timeline, but it does not change the end goal. We are still going to competition. This vote was taken in February 2022. We have put all the systems in place to be ready for go live and have been training our folks. And as soon as we get that final approval, we'll be out in front of everybody over and over again telling you this is when this will go live for you going and picking a new provider. But I still want to walk through everything that we've got here to show you today, because this is a process, and I want to try to kind of familiarize yourself with what this is going to look like once we get to competition. As you can see, I'm already failing at the technology, so if somebody can come help me get the presentation back up, and everybody can hold for just a second. This happens 100% of the time. If I touch something like this, it's going to break. Did the TV turn off maybe? Oh, there we go. Everybody close your eyes and don't look at Matt's password, please. No pressure, no pressure. All right, here we go. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Okay. Let's see if we can do this here. Okay, just starting off, just very simply explaining what this is that we are doing. So what is retail electric competition? Retail electric competition, you can compare it to shopping for a cell phone plan, internet plans. It allows customers to shop for retail electric providers and find plans that best meet their needs. As you can see, we say here coming soon. That's what we were just talking about a second ago. As soon as we get that final approval, we'll be able to set a date for when this all takes place and for our customers to go out there and begin this process. Just very quickly about the history of competition. Texas has its own electrical grid that I'm sure you've become aware of as we've been going through this process the last few years, which is called ERCOT. ERCOT covers about 93% of the state of Texas. Lubbock, for the longest time, has existed connected to the Southwest Power Pool, which is a multi-state electrical grid that runs from Lubbock all the way up to Canada. In 2015, we were faced with a decision to make because we knew at that point in time that if we stayed in the Southwest Power Pool, that the future of Lubbock Power and Light would be building a very large power plant, and that sole plant would be hopefully enough to meet the needs of our electric consumers for the next 30 to 50 years. If we had built that power plant, it would be in operation today. It would have costed about $750 million, and our ratepayers would be the ones who would be solely paying that back. Instead of going that route, instead at that time we decided, let's go seek approval to join ERCOT, build transmission lines to connect Lubbock to ERCOT, and it comes with the added bonus of not having to build that power plant at the cost of our customers, but instead we build these transmission lines and they come with a rate of return from the ERCOT market that helps us pay off that debt. So it doesn't solely fall on the shoulders of our customers, but instead that cost is spread throughout the state. That was the very first thing that drove us to this decision to join ERCOT. But then once we got through the process of deciding to do that, it dawned on us going through this that Lubbock has had competition in the past. You have in the past been able to pick one provider versus the other. And between those two companies built lines down either side of your alley. Well, in 2010, the city bought out XL Energy's infrastructure, those wires, and since that time, LP&L has been managing both those sets of wires equally with the same rates. We moved the legacy LP&L lines to ERCOT in 2021. And what we are scheduled to do once we get federal approval is move those other lines and connect them to our others, so everybody is in the ERCOT market. Because once that happens, then everybody, it's available that they can have competition at that point in time. The way that competition came within the ERCOT market, and it exists in ERCOT, not the Southwest Power Pool, but the way that competition came about is that in 1999, the legislature deregulated all the areas of the state that was serviced by investor-owned utilities. That's why Dallas, Houston, nearer to us, Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, Wichita Falls, Abilene have all had competition for 20 years because they were previously served by an investor-owned utility. They left alone in 1999 cities that owned their own electric utility, of which there are 72. And they left alone cooperatives like South Plains Electric Cooperative, of which there are 75. Did I lose the TV again? No. Okay, good. So, Lubbock is looking to be the first municipally owned utility to step across the line and say we're going to bring competition for our customers. The reason that cities normally can't do this is that if you're continuing just status quo and you have many power contracts that you've signed over a number of years, and you've got debt in your power plants and things of this nature, it's very hard to shut down your business and migrate to a business like we're fixing to do. But because Lubbock was moving from SPP to ERCOT, we were in a position where, hey, most all of our stuff is ending here and starting here. If we're ever going to bring competition for our customers, now is the time we're going to do it, because we're situated to do so. You can see that one contract that we're trying to resolve is still getting battled over, and so that's why it's nearly impossible for a city just to up and go to competition. But we're situated to do so, and it's what we're working to do. Once we make this transition to competition, our customers will get to go decide who they buy their power from, what that power looks like, and once you decide that, LP&L will still be here. We're going to maintain all the electrical equipment and wires that we currently do today, and we simply deliver the power that you choose from the provider that you choose. That's the way this works in Dallas and Houston and these other cities. There is one company, be it Encore, CenterPoint, AEP, who own and maintain the grid, and then the customers go decide if they want to get their power from companies X, Y, and Z, and it just flows across those lines, and the cost to pay for that infrastructure is on the bill that you get from your eventual rep. So when we get to the point where you choose your new provider, you will get a bill from company X, Y, Z that you pick, and on that bill, it will have our cost to recover our infrastructure. I promise this is not you paying twice. I've seen that a lot in social media commentary. You're not paying twice. You're paying the provider that you choose for the power that they have bought for you at the rate that you've negotiated, and then you're paying our infrastructure cost to maintain the grid. That's the way competition works, and that's the way it'll work here in Lubbock when we get to this point in time that we're going to go live. As mentioned, what LP&L will not be doing anymore is buying power for our customers. You know, right now we buy power for all of our customers in bulk, and then we take that power that we've bought and we spread that cost across all of our ratepayers, and that shows up on your bill as the purchase cost recovery factor or pass-through, because we're just passing through the cost of natural gas and the power that we buy for our customers. So if you look at this pie chart here, this will show you how our rate is broken down. This light blue box here right now is our base rate. It pays for every single thing LP&L does, including servicing our long-term debt. That darker blue right there that makes up about 70%, again, that's what we're just passing through in terms of the cost that we incurred to buy power for our customers. After we make this transition, you'll see that orange box there. That's now who you're going to go pick to be your provider. And we'll talk in a second about how you do that, but in a very general sense, that's what we're doing here, is you're going and deciding where you want to buy your power from, and then we're delivering that power to your home. So I'm going to skip this because we've already covered this, and this is what I was talking about, that there's There are a lot of different ways that we're going to be out there communicating this. One thing that I'm stressing right now, since we're still in the awareness phase of this project, we're not quite to the spot where you actually have to do something. Right now, what we're really trying to promote is everybody going to lpnl.com to our website to look at the resources we put together that give you a real baseline of what this project is. Everybody picked up a retail competition shopping guide. That is the first version of the shopping guide that we will be passing out to all of our customers that gives you all the do's and the don'ts and the questions you want to ask and gives you all the instructions for how you pick a provider. If you'll notice at the back of that right now, we don't have any providers listed because we do not know who the providers are yet. We know that there's going to be at least 3, being Reliant, TXU Energy, and Octopus Energy. We know this because they went through the bid process to be named as default providers and what you call providers of last resort. So we know that they'll be here operating. But there are 90 some odd other companies right now that are testing with us because they want to participate in this market as well. Now, not all 90 of those that are testing with us are going to be ones that you individually would be able to choose. There are some that I've talked about that, take Walmart for example. Walmart has stores in other states that have competitive markets, and they are large enough that they have their own retail provider that they've stood up to just serve Walmarts. So that entity's testing with us, but they're not going to offer to the mass public. From what we've seen from cities around us, you can probably logically expect that there'll be about 20 to 30 companies offering you somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 120 different plans. Now, I know that might sound daunting. Every time I say that, I have folks that kind of recoil and say, that's a lot to go through. But as you'll hear me say over and over again, especially when it comes to residential customers, this can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. Because you can go to the powertochoose.org website, and we'll show it here in a second, and you can simply say, I want the lowest cost provider. That shows up, you pick that company, you sign that contract, and you go. Or you can really dig in and say, I really want to have a very specific type of power plan. That's what competition allows, is each individual person really digging in and deciding what they want for themselves, for their home, for their business. So if you go to our website, you'll see different places on the home screen where you can go see more about this project. Right up front, when you click on the competition section, we're going to have a roadmap that's going to show you where we are in this project and to give you important dates that are coming up. We've got several animated videos that we've already put out there. We've got 2 more that we are in the process of finalizing that tell people more about this project and give instructions. These are in English and Spanish, and these are really good resources if you've got folks that you want to send information to. As I say, we've got key events and dates that are listed on the website. We also have a long list of FAQs on the website, and most of these FAQs we have taken from groups like yourself. As we've gone and talked to groups, every single time somebody asks me a question that we have not fully thought about. Thank y'all. So, help me build out these FAQs. As was said up front, there are no bad questions here, because nearly every question you ask, there's some portion of it that we're going to take back and use to refine these frequently asked questions. And so the back and forth with groups like this is very important. So that's a general overview of what this project is and where you can go get information. Right now, I want to walk you quickly through the powertochoose.org website. The powertochoose.org is the state-sanctioned website that you can go on to and shop when the time comes. You don't have to go to this website. I'm going to list every single provider that's authorized to do business with you here in Lubbock on our website when we get those names available. I'm going to list the name of the company, the website that you can go to about shopping for plans, and the contact number that you can call. So you don't have to go to this website, although I think it's a pretty good tool. You can simply call these companies and say, I'm interested in doing business and signing a contract with you, and they will give you a rate quote. And one of the things that I'm going to put on our website when it's time for folks to shop is I'm going to put our all-in electric rate on our website. Because as I regularly say, a lot of customers, they don't pay a rate, they pay a bill. They're more familiar with what it costs them on a monthly basis to purchase electricity from us, not necessarily what their specific price is per kilowatt hour. So if I tell the general public 13 cents per kilowatt hour, most folks are going to say that has no relevance to me. Some will because they pay attention. A lot won't. But what I'll be able to say is that, our rate is, say, 13 cents per kilowatt hour. Y'all are going to go shop. That's a benchmark. Try to beat that price. And then if you can beat that price and then rope in other aspects of this that you would like to see, that's great. But at the end of the day, relatively that if you sign a contract that is at or below our current cost for electricity, then you're going to know relatively that you're going to be doing at or better than where you are today. And that is our hope, is that when we go to this market, that everybody will see cost savings in these contracts that they sign. So when you go to the powertochoose.org website, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to enter your zip code. If you go there today and you type in a zip code here for Lubbock, it's not going to populate anything because these providers are not registered here in Lubbock yet. But when they are, you'll put your zip code in there, and it will quickly populate all the different plans that are available for you in your zip code. So I'm going to skip right to this. Okay, so let's say this is typing in a Midland zip code here. So when we do this is what it's going to look like on your computer screen, in that it's going to start with the lowest cost, and it's going to move to a higher cost from there. And on the left side of the screen, without any filters put in, you can see that in Midland, you can get a rate that is about 8 cents per kilowatt hour, which is pretty good. But let's say that you're somebody that on a regular basis interacts with customer service for your electric bill. Well, then you're somebody who's going to value somebody with a good customer service rating. You may be somebody that says, I've not called my electric utility in 10 years. So that doesn't matter to me. I don't regularly call them. Remember that when you have outages, you're still going to call us, right? But if you're somebody that says, I nary have a question on my bill that I really need explained, I just want lowest cost, then there you go. You can click on one of these first that come up, and you can go. Sign up with them, and you'll have the option of 3, 6, 12, up to 60 months if you want to lock this in. But let's say that you're somebody that says a customer service rating is important to me. Then you're going to click on there, and you're going to fixed rate, show all plans. You're going to click on there, and you're going to say, all right, I only want 4- and 5-star rated companies. And you click on that filter, and then let's say you go beneath that and you say, you know what, I'm somebody that it matters to me that I have a 0 carbon footprint. I'm somebody that wants to buy 100% green power. Not saying that you are, but let's say that that matters to you. So you say, I want a 4- and 5-star rated company, and I want all of my power to come from green energy, or 50%, or 25%, right? But each one of those that you hit, it's going to narrow your plans, and that price is going to go up a little bit because you're paying a premium because you're getting more of a niche rate versus just somebody's no adders, just a rock bottom rate. So that's where I say you can make this as complex or as simple as you want to. And the decisions that you make, being more specific with your rate plan, your cost may be going up a little bit, but you may find that you can click a 5-star rated company and get 100% green power at 12.5 cents, and that's still better than what you're paying us today. So you're still good. You don't have the lowest cost plan that you could possibly have, but you've added in all the things that matter to you, and you're still better than you are today. But that's where I say you can really play around with this and see exactly how you want your power. And once you make that decision and you sign that contract, then again, it's just our job to deliver it to you. Now, when you look down these plans, there's a fact sheet, also called an electricity facts label. That is going to give you all the details of your plan, and it's important that you read through that. I promise you it's not as complex, as I've said before, as like reading through the terms and conditions when you update some app and it's 75 million pages of small print. These fact labels are required to give you the information that you need right up front in basically a one-pager. But it's important that you read through this because every single company out there is going to have a little bit different fee structure. So there may be some companies that you look through here, and the deposit. Deposits are always a question I get in these groups. What is my deposit going to be? It's going to be listed here on the fax label. If I get disconnected for non-pay, what are they going to charge me to reconnect me? That's all going to be listed here. If you're somebody that's working through this and you say, you know what, I'm not really confident enough right now to sign a long-term deal. I'm just going to sign a 6-month deal, but I'm still unsure. This is going to tell you what the penalty would be if you broke that contract, right? So you're going to want to look at that. So if you get into one of these contracts and you need to break it, you know what your rights are underneath this fax label. Okay, so we've walked through all of this. And I'll just say, for those that do get on social media, following us on social media is always a good tool. Because anything that we're doing, anything that I'm talking about, anything I'm handing out, any of these things that I'm discussing, they're all going to be on LP&L.com. So this presentation that you're watching tonight is on our website in a downloadable format. All of the handouts that we're giving you, it's all on the website. Social media is where we're really going to be sending out a lot of alerts and drawing people in. But we're also going to be doing news interviews, and I'm going to be around talking to groups like this. So if you're not somebody that's on social media, you don't feel comfortable, if you're not tech savvy, then there are other ways that you can follow us. I will say this too. When we get to the point where folks are going to need to go out there, research, and start shopping, we fully understand that there are some people that do not have a computer at their house, do not have the internet, or they do, but they don't feel like they're tech savvy enough to kind of maneuver through this. And so we're looking at various places around the city, like community centers, like our public libraries, where we can put this information out there, these shopping guides, and then if somebody calls into City Lubbock Utilities and says, that's all well and good, but I don't have a computer at my house, I don't have a way to go onto the powertochoose.org website and shop, they can go to the local library and they can use the public computers and they can have our resource guides. But there is kind of a line that we have to draw in that when folks call into our call center, our city employees cannot choose for you. We can't step across that line. And so we're trying to load up as much information on the website that they can point to when people call in to say, this can answer all of your questions, but then also have that available at the customer service center for people that come in and out that need to pick up this information as well. So I've covered a lot in a fairly quick period of time because I always want to leave a bunch of time for questions. I'm sure there's some stuff that I've forgotten to mention as I've worked through these slides, but we can start taking questions. I think against the back row, he's got a mic, and so if you'll raise your hand, I'll try to do my best to work around the room and have Matt bring the mic around so that everybody can hear questions.
Do you have any idea about the time frame when we will be able to get on the website? Or
Sure. So right now, we are still, as we mentioned up front, until we transfer the remaining 30% of customers over to the ERCOT market, this does not officially begin. And we're waiting. No, that's what we're trying to ascertain right now because the feds did not approve this last week. We're going through trying to figure out how long that process is going to take, and then we'll be out there shouting it as soon as we know. Almost certainly, where I've been going around telling folks that August would be when people could start shopping. That almost surely will get pushed back by a little period of time, but we still anticipate that this process is going to start in the near future. And so we might have to adjust that date, but I'll be out there telling folks, once the reps get registered in this market, they'll be up on the powertochoose.org website. It's just not going to populate plans in these because folks can't officially sign up with them yet. But all of that information is already up on LP&L.com, and everybody is welcome to go work through that information we have out there right now. Yes.
Will these individual companies be able to come and knock on our door and say, we want to talk to you about our plan? I've already had multiple people come to my door and say that,
They're
and
not
I've
supposed
told
to.
them to turn around and walk the other way.
Please, that's exactly what you should do. There is not a company that is operating right now that can sign you to a contract. They're still going through testing with us. I've found here recently, because we've been getting reports that people are going and knocking door to door. First of all, if they're going door to door, then they are legally required to have a peddler's permit with the city. And so we've already taken some calls in where people have been able to identify these companies, and we're sending them to the right folks to make sure that they're not doing that anymore. Solar companies are ones that I've noticed here recently. They keep going door to door, and they keep saying that we've partnered with the city, or we've partnered with LP&L, and I want to help you with their plan, and all they're doing is turning back around and trying to sell you solar panels, not actually help you with this project.
So would it be a good idea to ask them for one of their business cards and then us let you know?
Yes, please. Yes, please. And if you will send that to us, again, we'll get with PD and we'll get with the folks needed to get them to stop doing that. You know, one of the reasons that I want to list out all of the names of the companies that are legally allowed to do business once we go live with this is not just so that people can go research, but also because when somebody comes to your front door, I want to be able to say, if you've got any questions, go to our website and see if they're actually a company that is registered to do business with us here in Lubbock. Because I want to make sure the public knows that and doesn't, that there's not somebody out there that tricks somebody into something they shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So, and by the way, Joel Ivy, he's the director of Lubbock Power Light. He's hiding over in the corner. If you have any questions for him, I will drag him out here so that I'm not the only one. Going back for just a second, I was telling you that Reliant and TXU and Octopus Energy, we know that they're going to be doing business in Lubbock. So one of the most important decisions that the board and council have made outside of just making the vote to do this is deciding who would be our safety net providers and deciding who would be our default providers. When we open up our shopping window and customers have that period of time to go pick their provider, if somebody does not pick a provider during that time frame, either because they didn't know what to do or they didn't have the resources to get it done, or honestly, they just didn't know this was going on. There's going to be folks across this city that, despite us running sound trucks up and down your street and yelling at you about this, that are going to miss all of it. That's just natural. And so we have those three entities that if somebody doesn't choose, they will be randomly assigned to one of those three companies. And those three companies are required to offer kind of middle of the market rates for those customers that they take on. So that we know that if you don't make a choice, you're going to land with somebody and you're going to land at a price that's about what everybody else has paid. And if you want to just go, if you didn't know about it and you get a letter and you say, okay, let's say TXU is now my provider, I don't want them, you can go out and pick a provider on your own. But this is a way to make sure that everybody lands somewhere, even if they don't make a choice. Now, that's a one-time designation. Once we're in the competitive market and the months go by, let's say there's a moment in time where your chosen provider overnight goes out of business. We want to make sure that your lights don't go out and you're caught in limbo until you go pick a new provider. So you are automatically shifted back to one of these safety net providers, and then you have the ability to go pick your new provider. But your cost does not dramatically shift overnight, or worse, you sit in the dark until you figure out how to go pick a new provider. So those are two really important designations that I should have mentioned up front, so thank you for pointing that out, because that's an important part of this process. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, you got LP&L, makes energy, comes to our house, blah, blah, blah. So now we've got ERCOT making energy, and we have all these other people that are gonna attack my dime. How is this gonna save me money?
So ERCOT's not a power provider. ERCOT is the grid. ERCOT is basically like the air traffic controller for the Texas state grid. Individual companies are putting power on that grid every single day, and ERCOT is managing the flow of electricity. So on any given day, like it's important as we head into summer, on any given day, ERCOT is saying, we know that we need 80,000 megawatts of power on the state grid in order to make sure that we have enough power for all customers that are taking power. That's ERCOT's sole job. So what we're really doing is we're really breaking out what we do today in pieces. We buy the power that we sell to customers. We have power plants here, but increasingly over the last 10 years, those power plants' capacity has been dwindling. So we really buy the vast, vast majority of the power that we provide to our customers. We're stepping out of that business, and these other companies are going to fill that space. Where you save money is that you are able to go out at any given time and shop amongst all these providers and pick who has the lowest cost at that point in time. And one of the things I'll tell you about public power like ourselves is that on one hand, we're very consistent. On the other hand, if natural gas pricing falls, if energy pricing falls, the market's going to react faster than we would. So like right now, if you went on to the powertochoose.org website, you could get a rate that is nearly half of what our rate is, just because energy prices are so low. Now starting today, we're lowering the cost of that pass-through to our customers 18% because that cost has gone down. But at any given time, you can go on and find the lowest cost provider in this market. The rep makes money by selling power, and the reps are allowed up to a 10% rate of return. I believe that is still the case. And so they do have added in there a profit margin for themselves. But some of these companies, you know, like an NRG Reliant, they are so big and their portfolio is so big that can be built in, but they're buying it at such a large quantity that they can still price it lower than we can. And the other thing, and I pointed out the green energy part of this just simply because there's a lot of times that customers come to us and say, you know, we would really like Lubbock Power and Light to invest more in this resource or that resource, and we've never really had the ability to do that. This allows customers individually to go out and find companies that specifically do that type of resource or provide that type of plan. You know, time of use rates, like free nights and weekends. You can sign up for things like that. There's different bonuses that you can get from different companies with the products that they offer that we've never been able to. You know, for all of our customers, there's about 1,500 of them that have solar panels. You know, that's where they can take these solar panels and go to companies that have good buyback rates and negotiate that. So it gives the customer more flexibility.
LP&L still charging $28 for the solar panel?
Yes.
You're not making energy, so why do you?
It's because the cost that it bears on the system. And I will tell you this, when we went through and we were looking at, you know, the cost that we charge today versus going into the market, and we did an update analysis on that, it actually costs us more than what we're charging, but at the same time, that is our cost to make sure that we're keeping the system as a whole safe. Everybody out there is going to pay $8.07 as a residential customer for your meter, but those that have solar panels on their side, their cost is more in terms of bearing on the system. Yes, sir. Sure. So the question was, what is the benefit to us? If these companies can make a profit, then where does the customer stand to see a benefit from going to competition? And again, it's because there are all of these different companies to choose from, some of which have large portfolios, that you can find a better cost than you can currently with LP&L. Yes, sir, in the back. Or I'm sorry, we'll go here and then we'll come to you next, I promise. Yes.
Will our choice of providers affect the rate of, or our chance of having a power outage?
Just repeat one more time. Is the number of providers?
Will our choice of provider affect the chance of us having a power outage at our house?
No, it's not. It is whoever you choose, they're sending the power down the line. The outage at your house likely is going to come from that line breaking. And we'll still be the ones that will go out and fix that line when it breaks. Similarly, when you look at it across the state of Texas, last summer we had a record hot summer, and ERCOT made it through the summer without any reliability issues. I will tell you that at the same time, the Southwest Power Pool sent us several conservation notices. The issue, a lot of times when people talk about reliability, is the grid as a whole. And we've been very encouraged by what ERCOT has done with their grid after the legislative reforms after Winter Storm Uri. And we're seeing about an equal reliability in both the Southwest Power Pool and ERCOT. Across the United States, there needs to be a massive build out of the federal grid, but that's a whole nother talk that we could spend an hour on. But your choice of providers is not going to affect the reliability at your home. Yes, sir.
To be perfectly clear, is this just on the electric rate and not the PCRF or the fee that you'll charge to maintain the lines? Those are other fees that will be on top of the electric rate, right?
Well, it's all going to be one rate. So when you look at the powertochoose.org website, if it says 8 cents or 9 cents or 10 cents per kilowatt hour, that's the all-in cost. That's the complete cost. That includes the cost to maintain the infrastructure along with it. So we're not adding an extra burden. We are playing the role of maintaining the grid. I'm sorry. Is it I'm sorry, well, I can't remember what the exact question was. Sorry, I thought you spoke into the mic, so I thought people could hear. I apologize. Okay.
In the event of a natural disaster, are there multiple transmission options coming into Lubbock? And will we mothball the LP&L power station here, or will it be available for an emergency?
So the question was, do we have multiple lines coming into Lubbock? And yes, we have how many? 3, 4 tie lines? 3 tie lines. You got north, east, and south. So similar to what it was before. And the question about our power plants, right now, the power plant that you see out on the Cook Highway, out on the Slayton Highway, we have been in the process of mothballing that since about 2015. There's a unit out on I-27, which is the Massengale unit, and we're currently doing analysis of what value that can bring to us. And then, of course, you have the Brandon station that's on the Tech campus that's fairly integral to what Tech does. So we're kind of taking them piece by piece. But what we will be doing as we go into 2024, and we're no longer providing power to our customers, is taking a look at, do we sell those plants to somebody that wants to come in and run them? Do we sell it for pieces? Is there some option that we can utilize to make best value of those power plants? Because we've only got about 100 megawatts that we can generate out of those facilities if everything's up and running. And increasingly, every single time something breaks within those that we run, it's millions of dollars to get it back on. So after a period of time, you just have diminishing returns coming out of that plant. But taking what we have right now offline, if that's where we go, will not fundamentally affect the reliability of the ERCOT grid, because again, there's about 83,000 megawatts on the ERCOT grid, and our plants only produce 100 megawatts. So it's a very, very small percentage. Yes, sir.
When this power sign-up begins, how long will it last? And number two, the people that you are contacting to sign up, will they have the computer power to reach them to do the sign-up?
So when we open up the shopping window, you're looking at about a month's time. You're looking at about a month's time to make a decision on who you want your power provider to be. One of the things that we are doing right now down in the Texas legislature is getting a bill passed, because the law currently states that as a municipally owned utility, we cannot share your electric data, except for a short list of exceptions. And for some reason, ERCOT was not listed on there, likely because nobody anticipated a city going to competition like Lubbock's currently doing. So we're actually getting a bill passed so that we can migrate customer data to ERCOT, and that they can be the clearinghouse, so that, to your point, when we get to the shopping window, a rep that has the right to contact a customer and does, will be able to talk to that customer about what they can offer them and sign them up. We want this to try to be as seamless as an exchange as possible. And so we were actually gearing up to send out a letter to all customers. We'll probably likely be doing that in a couple of months, since we're still waiting on that last federal approval, to basically inform customers that, hey, through this process, we will be sending your information, your name, your address, your usage history, so that it's all held in one place and can be accessed by your future provider, so that they can sign you up, and they've got all the information they need to do that right then and there. And when we get to the shopping window, we are going to, I've proposed doing it every single Saturday during that shopping window, if not more. We are looking probably at the Civic Center, but we're looking at bringing in every single provider that's registered to do business here in Lubbock into an event where every one of y'all can go out there and meet these folks. You can gather information from them. You can sign up with them right then and there. That's, again, another way that I want to try to offer for folks that don't have the ability to do this on their own through a computer, is that I can say, hey, for the next 3 Sundays, or the next Saturdays, or the next 4 Saturdays, you all come out to the Civic Center from 8 to 1 and talk to these folks, and go around to these different booth spaces and decide who it is that you want to pick, so that you can see them right there. One question that I'm going to put out there in this shopping guide, and this is something that's come from these groups that we've talked to, is, are these new reps going to have a physical presence here in Lubbock? Some of them will, and some of them won't. But there may be some folks that's important. I want to be able to get in my car and drive to a storefront and go inside and talk to somebody. I don't want to just call somebody over the phone. And so that could be an added bonus for some of these providers. One of them already has a physical office here in Lubbock. Another one's about to open one up. But, I want people to have that information too. So if you want to go talk to these folks, you can. Speaking of billing, since I didn't cover this, but it's always asked, for your other city services, water, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste, those different city departments outside of LP&L that currently come on your City of Lubbock utilities bill, they will continue to come on that same bill. And you'll still call 775-2509 to talk to City of Lubbock Utilities customer service. You'll still go to that same website to pay your bill if that's how you do it. You'll still mail your check to the same physical address you do today. The only difference is that LP&L is dropping off that bill and will live on the bill of the provider that you choose. But everything else remains the same. Your garbage is still going to get picked up, right? Water service, all that remains the same, coming from the same place. Yeah, hold on one second, and we'll bring you the mic in just 1 second. Yes, sir. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. Yes, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. So I actually have 2 questions, but they kind of merge together. The first question was, you've mentioned several times the 3 default companies. What I haven't heard much about is, you mentioned that they were chosen via a criteria. I haven't heard what that criteria was and why those 3 companies in particular were chosen. And I asked that because of my second question, and that is, what structures are in place to ensure that a company like Reliant does not monopolize here in Lubbock, and then we have no choice?
So we put out a request for proposal for all of these to bid on getting that designation. And there was a select committee that was formed that had representatives from LP&L, from the city. I think the city CFO was on there. Our former board chair, Greg Taylor, that was the board chair for about 5 years, was on that selection committee. He also runs the city's audit committee. And they basically worked down a kind of percentages value list. And so the first was, you have to prove to us through your current business model that you have the space to take on these customers, and that by doing so, that it's not going to cause some sort of financial issue. So that's one. Do you have the bandwidth to do this? And not every rep does. Only these bigger ones have the ability to be able to say, I can take on 30,000 customers and it not kind of materially affect my offerings to those customers. But those rankings, and we've got it on the website that you can go take a look at it, it also goes all the way down to ranking what type of a history do you have in the communities that you've served. Have you been a good corporate citizen? Have you been in that town? Have you shown yourself to be somebody that does more than bill, but actually gives back to the community, philanthropically and otherwise? So that was one component. Another component was not just tell us, but show us the programs that you have for working with low-income customers. And that was weighed pretty heavily, because if you are going to be somebody who is a default provider and takes on some of these customers, we want to make sure that, to your point, you don't abuse those customers, and that you can prove to us that you can take them on at a rate that is not substantially out of the market. There was a lot of discussion on the EUB and the council level for many, many months. The council members can attest to this, about what are we doing to make sure that folks don't get assigned to somebody that doesn't treat them properly. I would say to your second question of what are the safeguards that say a Reliant does not monopolize the market, what we are relying on is what we've seen in the Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, Abilene, Wichita Fall market over the last 20 years. And the folks that we're seeing that are showing up to test, these are folks that have operated in those markets as well. I don't doubt that, at least beginning, Reliant's probably going to have an outsized portfolio of customers here, because they've been here for 3 or 4 years, ingraining themselves in the community. So I would expect that they would probably have a higher percentage of customers. The test is going to be when they re-sign those customers, have they treated them properly, have they jacked up their rates, or done something that has caused those customers to run off? And that's where, over time, I think this balances out, because you have the opportunity to go to a new provider, if you so choose, every 6 months or 12 months or 24 months, depending on how long of a contract that you sign. But we've not seen another market in the ERCOT competitive market where one company has just taken over and squeezed out other competitors. We just haven't seen that over the last 20 years, and that's what we're really banking kind of this market that we're setting up here on. We're doing a lot of this without a roadmap, but we're also doing a lot of this with history of what we've seen in cities around us. But it's a good question, and one that the council and board took a long time resolving, for sure, because it's important.
I notice on on these contracts, there is a cancellation fee. What is the acceptable reason to cancel your contract? And if there is a dispute between why you want to cancel and they won't accept it, who arbitrates that?
So, as I was saying, so the question being, there is cancellation fees on these different contracts. And that kind of, how does that process work? What's an acceptable level? Every one of them's cancellation is going to be a little different, but it's why it's important to look through those. I would imagine, and I'm just saying this generically, that some of these companies that have 1 and 2 star rated star ratings probably have a higher cancellation fee. I'm just guessing. than those that don't have a lot of folks that bail out. But do look at that, because it's important, because you may come to a point in time where you do need to leave your provider and you need to know what that cost is going to be. I would tell you just anecdotally that, you know, right now, the way it's set up, if you wanted to leave LP&L, you'd have to move out of our service territory. So, you know, the nice thing is that you can leave these companies, you know, if you so choose. But you need to take a look at that, just like you need to pay attention to what the deposit policy is. If you move to another city today, municipal utility, electric cooperative, whatever it may be, if you move to a new city and started service with a new company, you would be required to pay an electric deposit. When we make this transition and you pick your new provider, you will be required to pay a deposit because you're starting service with a new electric provider. Everybody has their deposit from LP&L automatically refunded today after 12 months of good payment. 24 months if you're a commercial customer. So we've got a lot of customers that don't have a deposit on file. But those that do have a deposit on file, when we make this transition, that deposit will get refunded back to them. We're also required to offer a letter of credit to any and all of our customers so that they could possibly use that as a mechanism to get their deposit with their new provider waived. But you're going to want to look at what the deposit policy is and what their policy is in terms of returning that to you with being a good pay customer. But something that everybody needs to be aware of. Yes, sir.
With the infrastructure, I'm sorry, I have a can in my mouth. I'm sorry, the infrastructure cost, will that be combined with your bill from the provider, or will it be two separate bills?
The infrastructure cost, our cost to maintain the infrastructure, will be included on your new provider's bill. So right now, if you look at the LP&L section of your, bill, you will see that you've got our base charge, our energy charge. It's right about 4 cents. That will be on your new provider's bill. And you look at the section of your bill with LP&L today that says purchase cost recovery factor, that I normally call a pass-through, and that will be on your provider's bill that you choose. And that's really what you're shopping for. Everybody, all of our customers here in Lubbock, within your rate classes, you'll all have the same rate to reimburse us for taking care of the infrastructure, for repairing it during storms, all those things. So if you go to Dallas or Houston today and you look up these plans, all the plans that are offered include what Encore charges to maintain the grid in the Metroplex, or AEP, or CenterPoint in the Houston area. It's the same here. It's just LP&L doing it versus these entities. And the nice thing about this new formation is that our sole job now will be to invest in the grid, maintain the grid, and get the lights back on as quickly as possible when damage knocks out the power. That will be our sole mission. If you look at CenterPoint or AEP, the grids that they own and maintain span multiple cities in multiple areas of Texas. Encore has something like 3.5 million customers that, you know, they are the grid operator for. And so they're looking at a big area that they're trying to invest in, you know, for the future. We're just going to have our local grid here at home. And so that'll be our sole focus. Everything that you pay in infrastructure cost will stay here in Lubbock and go to the local grid. We feel like that's a value for what in our new formation, that, you know, if we don't do a good job maintaining that grid, there are 3 people right there, and myself included, that you can come find and talk to about it, because this will be our sole job. But yes, it'll all come from your new provider's bill. We're making sure of that so that you don't have confusion of different bills going out, but you'll just get one from your new provider. Yeah, we currently own all of our electrical equipment, and we'll continue to own that and therefore maintain it. And so that constitutes basically the city's grid. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In very simple language, would you please explain what ERGOT is? I
Yes.
was under the impression that several years ago, there was a blackout in most of the cities in Texas, and the blame was put on ERCOT. Could you explain that to me?
So, if you think about it this way, you have, what is ERCOT? It's just, what is ERCOT? ERCOT is the state-run electrical grid. It is managed by the Public Utility Commission of Texas. It's regulated by the Texas legislature. That grid covers 93% of the state of Texas. We, in Lubbock, have been hooked onto the Southwest Power Pool. That is a separate electrical grid that runs from Lubbock to Canada. What we have done here is we have basically disconnected from one grid and connected into the state grid, the one that is controlled and operated by the state of Texas. ERCOT is not a power company. There are 600 different power plants across the state of Texas that are run by public and private entities that are putting power onto the ERCOT grid. But ERCOT does not run power plants and sell power. They're the air traffic controller. So the state-run grid that we are now primarily connected to, in short order will be fully connected to, they're the ones on any given day that say, across our grid, this is what the demand is going to be. And so this is how much power needs to be on that grid. And if you're hooked onto that grid, if you are the city of Austin, who's a municipally owned utility like ourselves, you've got contracts with power plants, you've got contracts with power providers, you're buying for your customers from those folks, and that power is just flowing across the ERCOT grid. Now, the ERCOT grid has choice, but only in parts, and that's what we're doing here is we're joining that competitive market. But ERCOT is simply the one that maintains the grid. Now, the second part of your question was that you heard a couple of years ago there was a blackout. In February of 2021, Winter Storm Uri came across the state of Texas, and it caused outages across the state of Texas. We were hooked onto the Southwest Power Pool. We were still 90 days away from migrating 70% of our customers over. We had to rotate outages like they did in ERCOT. We just didn't have to do it for as long. We did it for a couple of days, and then our customers here in Lubbock stood up and conserved energy, and we didn't have to do it for a third day. ERCOT, they went through several more days, almost a full week of having to rotate those outages. Lucky for us, the legislature was in session at that point in time and passed 2 major reform bills, and those reforms have now been enacted in ERCOT. So every single power plant across the state of Texas now has to be fully weatherized, right? There's all these different things that they required that have now been completed. And so that's where I say, I look at last summer. That was an extremely hot summer, and we went through it without any sort of issue. If I looked at this summer, they're not anticipating any sort of a shortage or issue this summer. And at the same time, the Southwest Power Pool, I will receive numerous conservation notices throughout the summer months as this region of the Southwest Power Pool grid becomes taxed because of very hot weather. But it's an important question, and I answered a lot, because I think a lot of people are under the assumption that we were sold to ERCOT, right? And that's not the case. We just simply disconnected from a multi-state grid and hooked into the state grid. We made that decision back in 2015. We made that decision back in 2015. And the reason we made that decision, as I said up front, was that we knew that if we stayed in the Southwest Power Pool, we would have had to have built a very large power plant. And that would be our sole source of power for our customers. It would have cost $750 million in debt that we would have had to pay off. And if, God forbid, a tornado were to go through that facility, we would be in trouble for some time. More likely, what happens if natural gas stops being $2 and starts being $13? And our sole source of fuel for our customers is that natural gas. So we made this move so that we could hedge our portfolio and that we could stagger it out if we were to remain as a wholesale provider. But then as we went through this process, the decision was made that in entering ERCOT, we would actually be going to competition, and that's why we're talking about some of the new changes here. Michael, or who has the, no, right
Here.
behind you, and then we'll go to you, Michael.
Here.
Okay.
It sounds like you've worked really hard to vet these default companies to make sure that they're reliable, that they're not going to mess with people who can't afford, blah, blah, blah. The other 20 or 30 companies that we're going to get to choose from, will they be vetted for reliability equally as stringently? Or, I mean, you know, the elephant in the room was when that crashed, people who had this really great rate for electricity got nailed for apparently thousands of dollars because the companies, the independent companies they bought from, couldn't fulfill contracts without going out and buying electricity at a greater rate. And how are we buffered against that?
So we obviously spend a lot of time, as we talked about, vetting those 3 default companies. But everybody that is testing with us right now is registered with the Public Utility Commission. And in order to do so, they've gone through vetting by the state regulators to even be able to be a power provider. Now, it was a part of a question that we got a minute ago, and I didn't get to it. There are still remedies for bad players in the market. If you sign up with a company and you feel like they've not honored your terms and agreements, you can file a complaint with the Public Utility Commission. You can do that online through their website. There's also a state agency called the Office of Public Utility Counsel, whose job it is to go after those that are bad players in the market and protect ratepayers in the competitive market. And so there is a recourse for you to file a complaint. You know, the difference being that, you know, right now, if you don't like something LP&L does, a lot of times you go to your council member. Now you'll go to the Public Utility Commission of Texas, but again, you can do that online or you can call them to do that. Now, one of the things you mentioned was in Winter Storm Uri, there were stories about individual customers that got $8,000, $9,000 bills. Those plans for those customers, they have now been outlawed through that reform package that the legislature passed. What those individual residential customers did, or small businesses did, is that they signed up for a variable rate that basically allowed them to kind of manage their power portfolio. You know, we have an entire financial team whose job it is to buy in the day-ahead market, buy a summer. You know, most of the power that y'all are going to consume, we locked in last summer, and we've hedged it, and there's insurance there. During Winter Storm Uri, and this is where I say that we weren't immune from issue. If our gas bill in February, if we budget normally, you know, $15 to $20 million for that gas bill based off of history, our gas bill for that February of Winter Storm Uri was $125 million. But we had done the appropriate stuff that we needed to do to buy insurance, basically, so that we got paid out to go up against what our cost was. And so we ended up not having to go out to our ratepayers and raise rates because of Winter Storm Uri. So we were able to hedge against that. Those folks that signed those individual variable contracts were just absolutely exposed. And so when the pricing, and this gets a little more complex, but when the pricing in the ERCOT market and that wholesale market went from, you know, $30 to $9,000 per megawatt hour, those folks were exposed all the way through that. So the legislature's now gone through and said, residential customers, you know, these small businesses, that's not going to be an option anymore. If you're big enough, if you're a Texas Tech or somebody like that, that you can appropriately hedge, then they can do that. But for normal customers, that's been outlawed for that very reason, because when power pricing spikes, if you're not hedged, you're in trouble. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I guess not surprisingly, I'm interested in the tax structure because we have the franchise fees and pilot fees and other charges, and of course their share of, our LP&L share of the debt on Citizens Tower and all of that. And then we have sales tax on LP&L as well. I just wondered how that is all going to be calculated, because there's a lot of dependency on some of those taxes for the general fund.
So taxes and fees on your, taxes and fees on your bill. So one of the first things that we did when we decided that we were going down this road is that we met with the city manager, we met with the folks at the city to make sure that our going this route and making this decision would not materially impact their budget and cause a financial issue in other places around the city. And so for that franchise fee, all of that our facilities are still going to be in the areas that they are. So that franchise fee, that's still going to be remitted back to the city. The sales tax that gets divvied up between city, county, and state is still going to get remitted back to the city. What we're going to do is we're going to have a group within Lubbock Power and Light whose job it is to do billing and customer service for the reps that are operating in this market. And when you look at that pie chart and you look at that purchase power portion, that's what the reps can take home. That's what the reps can take home. But they can't take home our cost of the infrastructure. That will get paid by the reps to us. And they'll also remit that franchise fee cost and the tax cost, so that all comes back to us and still flows to the city so that the budgets stay intact. And there's kind of a longer, more complicated way to describe it, but that's the bare bones of it, is that all of that will still flow through to us. I get the feeling like I'm out of time.
Thank you for so much.
I wanted to be sure that all of you met Joel Ivy. Joel, come on up. He is the director of Lubbock Power and Light, and I think he's got some kind of closing comments that will be helpful.
So for the record, Matt Rose is our spokesperson, and you're about to find out why. He's a lot better speaker than I am, that's for sure. But Matt, thank you. You always do a great job. I certainly appreciate everything you do. He's a guy you see on the news all the time, right? So give him a hug when you see him. He needs one. Certainly needs one. One of the things I want everybody to take away from this is nobody gets thrown under the bus. If you're not sure what to do, if you just can't make a decision, you're going to land with 3 very reputable energy providers with Reliant, TXU, and Octopus Energy. That's what we made sure of when we picked them, and that's why we did what we did. They want to be part of this city. That was important to us as well. So we have your back when it comes to this actually coming to fruition. Whenever that is, there is a slight delay, we think, but we're going to get this back on track, and we're going to get this done. And we'll keep talking about what that timeline looks like. So I don't want anybody to get anxious about this process any more than maybe you already are. But think of it this way. There are millions of people who are going through this as we speak across the state of Texas, and they've been going through this since 2002. So this is a very mature market. Most of the bad actors in this market have already been weeded out. So most of what we're left with are people that have the financial sustainability to do the right things. And so make reasonable choices that make sense for you, and you're going to be in very, very good shape. I certainly appreciate the support of the City Council and our board. Our board chair, Ms. Gwen Stafford, is kind of hiding in the back of the room back there. Then a former board member, Mr. Johnny Owens, is hanging out over there too. So my pledge is we will stay here and answer any more questions. We are out of time, but we'll hang out if you guys have any more questions you want to ask of us, and we'll try to get everything we can answered before we leave tonight. So thank you all for participating and being here.
Let me ask one question. Before you leave, let me ask you, give them a hand. This shows the interest that there is. The community is very interested in this changeover, and the city's working hard to make it as easy as possible when that transition happens. Let me ask you one question. How many of you are here tonight because you heard of this? I'm going to ask you how you heard about the meeting. How many of you heard about it from watching a city council meeting? Raise your hand if you would. All right. How many of you found out about it from a news report? Most of you. Okay. How many of you found about it from looking at a website? A few of you. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you again for being here. Latrelle, you have anything?
Just one thing. If you have a homeowners association and you want to meet again in a smaller group, here's my phone number, 806-543-8162. It's on my cards in the back. If you will call, we will set up some smaller groups if you have like an HOA or something, okay? We're not finished. All right, thanks for being here.
The cards are at the back. Thank you.